Welcome to the Art Lady channel. Today we're going to be inspired by Grant Wood's American Gothic painting, and we're going to be turning it into our very own spooky, scary American Gothic. I hope you have fun and enjoy this lesson. Grant Wood was born in 1892 and he died in 1942. So right during the war he died, World War II. He lived in Iowa most of his life, and he was known for painting American scenes, especially out west. So he painted pictures very realistically. When he first started painting, he painted like the Impressionists, very loose and light and colors that blended, but then he developed that realistic style. And he was famous for landscapes. But this is the painting that is most famous and very iconic. You will see this painting reproduced in ads and commercials. Here's one that's just in a postcard here. That's the black and white version of this. But I've seen them before in ads where they have dog faces instead of human faces. Today, we're going to take this American Gothic painting and we're going to turn it into a scary picture. So as we sketch this out, I want you to be thinking right now, what are your figures going to be? Now, I'm saying figures because they don't necessarily have to be people. They could be animal images that give the appearance of scary or spooky. They could be images of not this world. Maybe alien-like creatures. They could be any kind of traditional, scary images. Here's some examples that I've done. This, I just did kind of like ghouls and goblins. And then I did this kind of witchy person with Edvard Munch's Scream Man. So I put him on there. So as we're creating ours, that's what you're going to be thinking about. What do you want? What is your picture going to be like? Is it going to be kind of crazy spider people? So you're going to use your imagination. I'm also going to give you to look at a spooky worksheet. Maybe these two are ghostly figures. And they can be cartoon figures, anime type character figures. But we're trying to go on the spooky side or the scary side. They could be witches and goblins. They could be skeleton figures. They could be looking like scarecrow figures, mummy figures, all different kinds. Anything that you want. So use your imagination because you're going to come up with the better ideas than me. You have much more creative mind power than just me. It could be just kind of spooky eyes with kind of colorful faces. Who knows? Whatever you're coming up with. But I'm going to let you use this worksheet later to design it. But what we want to do first is we want to create that iconic American Gothic style composition where the woman or the one figure, if you look, is lower than the other figure. See how the heads are lower? It also has a farmhouse or a house in the background. So you want to put that house in the background because if you just did two figures, it wouldn't represent this painting. So we want to have some kind of a house. Now, use your imagination. It could be a tree house. It could be a haunted house. It could be a haunted castle. But you want it to have that pointed arch. You also want it to have this Gothic style window because the painting is called American Gothic. And you also want to have the male figure holding something. You see how he's holding a pitchfork. And in this painting, The pitchfork is mirrored, meaning it's also shown in his overall stitching. The stitching in his overalls, which is a dungaree jean material that farmers wear. They usually have 2 straps here. His overcoat's hiding it though. But do you see the pitchfork figure? The artist did that intentionally. And if you look upside down, the pitchfork is here in the Gothic window as well. These 3 lines that come together, that merge. So he did that intentionally. So that's why we want the Gothic window, something that he's holding, and whatever he's holding can mimic the shape in his overalls. The woman in this picture, she has some collar on her shirt and she has a cameo. So you want your figure here to the left to have some kind of a brooch on. And cameos were carved out of either stone, precious stone, semi-precious stone. They've been around for thousands of years. It's a raised relief piece of a pendant or jewelry. And this is actually a pin. Pendants you wear around the neck with a chain. This cameo here was carved out of shell. In the 19th century, the shell cameos were popular. That's why you get this shell, this peachy color with that carved on. And so that was a classic thing that the women would wear. So you want to have some kind of a pendant. Now here I put, let's look what I did. I stuck like a spider pendant on here. And I took her collar of her shirt and put some spooky spider webs. But we're still keeping the classic figures. To start off with, we want to do the center line, and then we're going to do 2 large heads. So I'm going to find the very middle of my page, and on the middle of my page, I am going to put just 1 dot, and then I'm going to assess to make sure I'm top, bottom, side, side. And then I'm going to go over 1 finger and 1 finger on the other side. The width of 1 finger and the width of another finger. So you can see, we can see on each side, we see a little bit of that. And for here, now we're going to do 2 large ovals. But because we're going to change the shape of the face, because we don't know exactly what our shape of our face is going to be yet. So for that, sometimes it might be more skeleton shaped. Sometimes we may want a head and face that is squared off with hair coming out. So we don't want to be able to see the oval egg in marker. Like for example here, you can see my oval egg. But because we changed the shape, or we're going to start off with a pencil. And we want this to be a pretty large shape. We want it to take up at least 3 of our fingers. So I'm going to place my hand at the end of this line, and I'm going to come over 3 fingers and put a mark. I'm going to do the same on this side because I want these to be pretty large size heads. Now I'm going to make the male head in this area. So I'm going to come down. I'm going to put 2 lines, and I'm doing them again with pencil because we want it to be pretty large. And then up and around and down like a U. So if you take your fist, it's almost as big as your fist. See, when you hold it this way, it's almost as big as your fist. Now I'm going to do the same on this side. Notice I'm very close to this edge because I've gone over 3 fingers. I only have a little bit of room on each side here. Now the female, or the other head, is going to be lower. So I'm just going to come over here. See how I've jumped down? Come across, and I'm just going to put a mark here. So this is where I want my head to start. And I'm going to do the same, coming down, because I want it to be about the same size. Now at this point, I'm not going to erase anything. Any of these lines here that are funny shaped, I'm just going to leave, because we're going to erase them eventually, because we'll be changing the head shapes. No sense in erasing it now because I don't need a perfect oval. That's just my guide. Now we're going to put in some of the body parts. So we need wide neck for the male, and the female has pretty long, narrow neck here. If we look at this black and white photo, his is a little bit shorter, hers is a little bit longer. Now we're going to come out with some shoulders for the male. I'm coming out and out right off the page. And I'm going to do the same for the female. I'm coming down and out, down and out. Now the male is in front of the female, so I'm just going to curve this and go right down to the bottom of my page. This is his shoulder. And we don't see the rest of her body. It's behind the male. We're going to give them neck collars here. And if you want to change this collar, it's okay. You could do V-neck. Hers is just a simple, this is almost V-neck. His is more of a curve right here. So you can do a curve, and I'm going to keep a V-neck for her. She does have this classic collar here. It's a white shirt underneath. Actually, it's like a collar that goes over her dress. And that looks like it goes part of that. So we're going to put that in. She has that white collar. So I did 2 lines that came down and over. Now for the female, if you look, she's got a cameo on. It's a pendant. It's a brooch. It's actually a pin that's pinned there. And cameos have been around for thousands of years. They used to be made of semi-precious stone. Here's a color version of it. It's a raised relief piece of jewelry, and it's carved. And this one that she actually has on from the American Gothic is made of shell. In the 19th century, shell cameos were very popular. They would carve into the shell, and where they would carve in, they would see the different layers of color. And the white or creamy color would be where the face or figure would be. And then you had the natural color of that beautiful shell, that orange showing through. We're not going to do a shell cameo or a face cameo. I'm going to leave this for you to decide what you want to go here. But you want to put something there because that's an important piece in this painting. For example, I did like a spider here. And on this one, I did another spider and a spider on there. So you can decide what you want on there because you're going to do something of interest here to go along with your characters. Now we're going to just put his arm coming down. So I'm going to skip over because we want to leave room for his shoulder and his bones and his jacket. And I'm just going to come straight down. We're not going to do the whole body because in the actual picture of the American Gothic, his arm, which is quite dark here, you really can't see it, it's bent and it comes over, and that's where he's holding the pitchfork. But we are going to have, so we don't see a lot of that. If you want to have his arm or his hand showing a little bit, we can do that. So at the very bottom, let's just do a knuckle, which is going to be a curved line. And we'll put another curved line on top, a little bit smaller. We'll do part of his hand, and then this just curves off. And so I'm coming over for a finger, and I'm curving down slightly. I'm going to do another line here. Let me blow this up so you can see it a little bit better. I'm just doing a curve and another line, so part of his hand's off the page. I'm going to give a curve here for a wrist. And then I'm just going to do a thumb, which is a diagonal line up, and I'm just curving round. I can see a little bit of his thumbnail, which is a diagonal. Get a little bit bigger. Let's focus this. And I'm coming down and over. Now this is where he's holding that pitchfork. So I'm going to do a horizontal line and a horizontal line. And then I'm just going to cap it because you might want him holding a pitchfork like this. Or you might want him holding something else. In the painting by the American Gothic, his pitchfork matches the pattern in his overalls right here. You can see that, and that's an important part of that painting. So I'm going to leave that blank for you to decide. So we want the jacket line to come over. You don't want it to come near the pitchfork. So I'm bringing it over and then down. And then I'm going to do the same on this side. I'm coming over now on this side and then down. Now I'm adding the overalls, which is like a jean material that farmers wore, heavy, tough pants that had a kind of a bib that protected his front. If you want to even put the overall strips, the overall straps in, you can. They don't show it in his picture, but it's important. In Grant Wood's picture, I'm going to stick them in. His jacket covers the overall straps. And then, like I said, if you want to put this pitchfork design in his overalls, we can stick that in right here, which was an important symbol that Grant Wood stuck in his painting. So I did the overall design. Now we're going to put in the farmhouse behind here, the Gothic style farmhouse. And it's got this beautiful Gothic window. So we're going to find the center of our page, and if we just draw a light line coming up, that'll help divide it. And we're going to do a horizontal, this horizontal line we're going to extend on both sides. And this you can switch over to a Sharpie if you want to. Because now we're going to come diagonally up on each side. And then we're going to do a weather vane at the very top, or a lightning rod. And then we're just going to simply connect this straight down to this line and straight down. Now, if you have to go behind the head, that's fine, to that line. And if your head shape changes, we can fix that later. Now, the Gothic style window is in the very center here. And so I'm going to do a straight line across, and I'm just going to come up and curve to that pencil line that we drew. And I'm going to do the same on this side. And then we do a straight line down, but I don't touch the top because the window splits. You look at the original postcard here, it splits at the top. So it splits and splits. I'm going to give a double line to this window pane. Same thing in here. And then let's give a double line down the middle. Now I'm going to give a window sill. I just added the two little windows that are below the roof here, the porch roof. But if you don't want to add these windows, you don't have to. You might want to turn this into, you know, your tree house or a different kind of a house. But as long as we've got the Gothic window, it'll give the feeling of American Gothic. So now we have all of our components of the painting, and now you're going to turn it into your own picture, being creative. If you want to do, you know, in the background, you can even add graveyards. You can add whatever you want. If you look at this spooky worksheet, this may inspire you. You know, you can have some ghosts floating around to make it scary and spooky, a spooky, scary moon. You could have bats flying out of the house and out of the windows. You can make broken windows. I think I did have a window that was broken in one of these pictures. Yeah, right here. Here's a broken window. My students thought of a lot of really interesting ideas. Here's like a hand coming out, breaking out through the roof. They had like alien spaceships coming and landing in the roof, crashing through the house. Here's some lightning bolts. This one isn't done yet, but I used a torch. He's holding a torch. I'll show you some other examples with spider webs, trying to turn this into a haunted house. And there's a spider weather vane at the top. And on this one I had some spiders on his head. I'll show you what these look like when they're done. So you want to use your imagination, and these are just suggestions here of what you could do. But if you use your imagination, you're going to come up with something amazing. Maybe just pumpkin heads, scary pumpkin heads, and vines crawling all over the building. This may give you an idea. So what you're going to do now is decorate your own, and then you can color it in any way you'd like. I'll show you some examples, and then you'll also see some examples of what the students have done. And underneath the description, if you click on the description or the title of the video, you'll see a link to this worksheet if you want to download this worksheet. It's on my Patreon account. I'll put it right here. Right below, right here, you'll see the Patreon account, and you can copy paste that and go right onto Patreon, or you can just click the link under the description.